Many people couldn't understand why a Super Bowl standout with a $40 million contract would murder someone, then commit suicide at age 27. But when scientists autopsied the brain of Aaron Hernandez and discovered an extremely severe case of CTE, his erratic behavior made more sense.
There is no safe blow to the human head.
Dr. Bennett Amalu was one of the first doctors to raise awareness about chronic traumatic encephalopathy, better known as CTE. He says hits to the head damage the area of the brain responsible for decision-making and judgment.
It could present with changes in personality, mood disorders, becoming a drug addict, an alcoholic. You have a much higher risk of engaging in self-harm, attempting suicides, and even committing suicides.
Dr. Amalu's medical contributions led to the groundbreaking movie Concussion, starring Will Smith.
Tell the truth.
While Amalu says the film's content was accurate, the title was misleading.
Concussions do not cause CTE. What causes CTE is blows to your head with or without symptoms, with or without a helmet. Helmets do not protect your brain from CTE.
Dr. Amalu says in just one season of practices and games, players can suffer hundreds of violent blows to the head.
Studies have shown that if your child plays football, that just after one season, there's a reasonable probability that your child had suffered irreversible brain damage. So over the years, it accumulates.
Boston University's CTE Center houses hundreds of brains of deceased football players and others from all walks of life.
20% of our cases, the donors have never had a witnessed, diagnosed, or reported concussion in their lives, yet have CTE at the end of the day.
Dr. Lee Goldstein and his colleagues found CTE in nearly all former football players they studied. What's possibly more disturbing is they also found the condition in brains of military veterans exposed to explosions, but who had not suffered a concussion.
We were very surprised by this and very confused.
So they went back to the lab. This is the shock tube. It perfectly simulates in mice what IED blasts do to soldiers. All of the animals tested developed CTE. But what's interesting is none of them had concussions. In fact, they seemed perfectly fine afterward.
We were able to figure out what happens in blast, and that is the head is moving very, very quickly, and it's that head motion, we call it the bobblehead effect, that causes the damage that leads to CTE.
That raises the possibility that battle-worn soldiers may have CTE rather than the often diagnosed post-traumatic stress.
Very common that these folks come back. They are not the same, and in some very real sense, they are not the same person they were before. In fact, the front part of the brain may be damaged, and in that respect, they really are different people.
According to Dr. Goldstein, there are likely many other types of people beyond vets and athletes suffering from this brain trauma.
Homeless populations, people who are chronically mentally ill, people who are at risk for domestic abuse, intimate partner abuse, child abuse, elder abuse, incarcerated populations, populations at risk for violence, people in poverty.
CTE can only be confirmed after death. And while there is not yet a cure, scientists are developing a test to diagnose it in the living, which could lead to a treatment. Lori Johnson, CBN News.